and welcome to this episode of ArtsAbly in Conversation. My name is Diane Collin. This series presents artists, academics, and project leaders who dedicate their time and energy to a better accessibility for people with disabilities in the arts. You can find more of these conversations on our website, artsably.com, which is spelled ArtsAbly.com. Today, ArtsAbly is in conversation with David Bobier, a Canadian media artist, founder of VibraFusionLab in Hamilton, Ontario, in Canada. You can find the resources mentioned by David Bobier during this episode on ArtsAbly's website in the blog section. Welcome to this new episode of ArtsAbly in Conversation. My name is Diane Collin, and today I have a special guest, and I am in a special place. I am with David Bobier, and I am in his lab, and he's going to explain us where we are exactly. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Nice to have you here.
Yes, thank you for welcoming me here. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So this is a fantastic place. How did your interest for music and also technology start?
Well, so I guess I will go back to my childhood, and my family, generations actually of musicians. Rural, I grew up in a rural community, so I guess you would sort of say old country. But my dad sang, had a beautiful voice, and he yodeled. And played multiple instruments. My grandfather and my great uncle also were violinists, and my other uncle is violinist. So I was kind of surrounded by music, but I didn't have the musical gene. It just didn't happen. I took some training lessons in piano and guitar, but it just didn't happen. So that was kind of the early influence, I think. And so I guess I could say maybe frustrated musician, but practicing artist. And I sort of consider what I do through my own work and through VibraFusionLab is some sort of manifestation of that experience of sound. I have a hearing loss as well. Experienced it, I guess, really from birth, but never really thought of it as any kind of sort of detriment. But then I think around my early work was really had a lot to do with sound, kind of texture, source, where the sound came from. So I was doing a lot of, I got a job actually teaching at Mount Allison University back in the late 80s and early 90s. And I started then kind of bridging the idea around technology and music and art. And Mount Allison University is in a small community, but it's known, Sackville, New Brunswick, but it's known, the history, it was manufacturing, and that was Enterprise and Fawcett. They were makers of furnaces and, all kinds of appliances. So with that kind of influence, I think, in the community or in the history of the community, I started kind of working with familiar objects that made sound, but then sort of playing around with that sound, recorded sound. So I was working with different sort of household objects that created sound and turning them into installations. And I was also interested in how I could engage the audience. And so there was always some aspect of entering the work and actually allowing the viewer to become a participant in some way or another, whether it was activating the work or changing, sound effects, that sort of thing. So, and then during that period of time, we adopted 2 deaf children. And they were age 2 and 10 months. And so the whole period of raising them, sound became an issue, something that was more prevalent than I think it was before. Like, how were they experiencing sound? How were they reacting to sound in a space? And watching and observing, and became, through them, became actively involved in the deaf community. And in the 90s, I actually created an exhibition that was about that experience. And it was called, what was it called? Oh, shoot, I forget. Anyway, I'll get back to it. But it was an exhibition of a number of installations that looked at the history of deaf culture. It looked at language, and it incorporated all this sort of information into the installations. And it traveled around Ontario. And I think it was probably, from what I kind of sense now, one of the first exhibitions that really explored that. There was a catalog for that as well. So I think the combination of all of that kind of took me in the direction of, as an artist, obviously incorporating sound, but at the same time, this would be 2010, I think, around that period of time, Ryerson University, which is now called Toronto Metropolitan University, as you know, there's a department there that's now called Inclusive Media and Design Center, and back then they were working on a project to develop a theater chair for the deaf. So there was I think they worked on that for probably 4 or 5 years. And I heard of it, and they were doing a public performance or public display of this work in a bar, Clinton Bar, it's called, in Toronto. So I heard about it, took the kids, and they tried out and met some people there. Anyway, I proposed to Deb Fells, who was the leader of that project, that the work that they were doing needed to be explored in a more public setting. And this is sort of, you'd mentioned this earlier about academic research needs to have more legs than within the confines of the university. So I worked with them for a bit, and then I suggested that we start doing some workshops outside of the university, and I coordinated those, and then we collaborated on a SSHRC grant to establish VibraFusionLab, but outside of the university. And so we were successful, and we set up the first VibraFusionLab in London, Ontario in 2012, and operated there for about 3 years. And during that period of time, it just became a kind of drop-in center for musicians, for artists, for underground bands. It became this sort of place where people could come together and enjoy music and experience so the technology that that had been developed at Ryerson essentially got transported into VibraFusionLab. So we had all these chairs and all kinds of vibrating stuff. That's when I first actually met Jesse. I invited Jesse to come. Jesse Stewart. And that was remarkable. And people like Gordon Monahan, who's a international sound artist, Marla Haledi from Toronto. Like, I just sort of wanted to connect with people, so I just contacted them and said, "Why do you want to come?" And I was able to fund everything, so pay them to be there, and that lasted for 3 years.
Wow. So when did you move here in Hamilton?
Yeah, so we actually moved to Hamilton in, 2025. I think in 2023, we had been doing some projects. We partnered on some projects with Center 3, which is an arts center here in Hamilton. We'd already been working on a few projects together, and they located a factory building that had been renovated, and so the proposal was that they would move into that space and we would move into that space, which is here in Hamilton. We did that and got set up, and within a year the building was up for sale. So that ended that whole, and it was amazing. It was like 5,000 square foot space, all open, windows, everything. Anyway, it was great. But we then moved here in 2024 into this space.
Okay. And can you talk a bit about the type of projects you're leading when you are getting together with artists?
Yeah. Gosh, it varies quite a lot from one artist to another. So we've started offering residencies here. Last fall we had 2 sets of residencies, but a lot of projects start from people coming to us. So I'm just trying to think. We worked with a deaf performance artist in Edmonton on he was working on a project, a performance piece that was called Carbon Movements, and it was sort of exploring or addressing the climate situation. But for that project, we built a raised stage and motorized the stage underneath. And the stage was covered with about 2 inches of black rice. And this was a full-size stage. So the motors would be activated and the black rice would move based on the vibration of the motors. So that was kind of one project that came to us. Another one is a double leg amputee circus aerialist, Erin Ball, who Erin, I think, everyone knows about Erin, and her partner, Maxime Beauregard. We've done 2 workshops with them already. And with them, we're exploring their movement in the air and tracking it and allowing that motion, that movement to either create sound or activate sound. But the direction we're going with that is that we're able to monitor her heartbeat, and so that we're using the heartbeat as a sound element for the piece. And as she moves, the movement changes, but also the heartbeat changes itself as she moves. So we're not quite sure where that's going to end up, but that's the direction that's going. We just started Travis Knight, who is a professional tap dancer, was just here a few days ago. And we're going to be working with him and another tap dancer And the intention there is to place contact mics or piezo's under the metal part next to the sole of the shoe, so that their tap and the movement of their foot will activate or change the sound that we're recording from their board that they're tapping on. So, yeah, that's one. We worked with a burlesque group of intellectually delayed performers in Calgary. Was never worked in burlesque before, but amazing, just amazing, creation and art form happening in that sort of area of the arts. Yeah, and also I think the other sort of part that so VibraFusionLab kind of is sort of built around two kind of foundations. One is to support deaf and disabled artists in the creation of their work through whatever sort of technology we can create for them or develop for them. And the other is to create access to art for audiences from the deaf and disability arts community. So those have been two very standard frameworks for VibraFusionLab, and still are, I would say. So yeah, so we do a lot of setting up vibrotactile systems in theater spaces and all across Canada, from Vancouver all the way out to Halifax. We've done that. And we can set up, we have pillows, vibrotactile pillows. We have Wooger belts, which are a commercial product that we use, and we can set up upwards of 100 systems in a space for the audience. So.
I have a related question. You already replied a bit, but I was wondering what it meant for you to work in an environment where you improve, increase, make a better access to the arts in the disability community and in disability culture in general.
Yeah, so what does it mean to me? Oh gosh, it's thrilling. I mean, but it's hard to encapsulate what it depends too on every individual that we work with comes with certain conditions, certain needs, but also certain ideas. And to just be an observer in all of that, and to as an observer, to watch that process of creation, what happens from the point of saying, well, we have this for you, these various things in the space that you can work with, and how they sort of transform that to make it their own. I think that's it. That for them to find that sort of direction, and to be able to observe that and to be able to support it. I often, when I talk about VibraFusionLab or myself, I often talk about we're facilitators. We're just sort of here to kind of guide and offer and then support, and however we can. And I'm deeply committed to supporting the artists for everything. I always try to make sure we obviously pay well for artist fees, but accommodation, per diem, travel. I really don't want the artist to have to the cost, to be here. That it costs them something to be here. However we can manage that, it's through. We don't have operating funding. We don't function on operating funding. So we work from project to project, but also people come with projects. So it's a little bit tenuous at times. But yeah, we're fortunate to be able to still be doing what we're doing and to have a space, and to say that we have, it's just a place to play, essentially.
Yeah. So I have a last question for you before maybe we can explore some of the elements we have in the room. I was wondering if during your career you had you met people who really counted for you or really transformed the way you were seeing. Despite family, I know that you you have two sons who are deaf, but in the disability culture community, did you meet people who really marked you in your career? And you can name more than one if you want. Who are they and why?
Well, I worked with an artist, a deaf dancer, choreographer from the UK. And I won't say it was I'm not totally amicable, but I would say influential in terms of the kind of project that we worked on, and the access it gave me to other venues, other people. So her name is Chisato Minamamura, and she was working on a project called Scored in Silence. She's Japanese, and as I said, but she's in the UK. She lives in London, UK. And the project was to sort of investigate the experience of deaf people during the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Very profoundly difficult project, but she spent time in Japan and actually located some deaf survivors. So she interviewed them. There was also some earlier footage from interviews that she was able to obtain, but one of the things that she discovered was that, and at that period of time, it wasn't unusual for deaf people or people with disabilities to be, kept in a room, essentially, or institutionalized. So the truth of the matter was that deaf people didn't even know there was a war going on. They were so isolated from the world around them. And when the bombings happened, the instant that it happened, it was this amazing kind of experience for them, right? They didn't know what it was, but deeply affected. Obviously, some were injured, some were. One fellow talks about how he was, sort of thrown, across a space. But anyway, so she did a whole piece around that. And it toured we had it here in Toronto and Hamilton. I don't know if you had a chance to see it.
Yes.
You did, okay. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. But anyway, also, so it toured in the UK too, and then it ended up at the Edinburgh Festival. So that experience of the touring was really interesting to me, because theater has always intrigued me. What happens in the background really intrigues me, and so that was interesting. But I would say Jesse Stewart, in a very different way, just his personality, his calmness, his peacefulness, his amazing ability. So many. Janelle Rouse, I think, for sure. Very, very influential, close friend. I think a lot of people that still have, influenced me are close friends. And it's hard it's hard to sort of come up with one or two people. I think that everybody I worked with influences me and kind of drives me forward, keeps my passion going for what I'm doing, and the surprise of what's coming next, because we never know. And the thrill of, I always say I create the projects and create the problems, and Jim is here to fix them. So Jim, I should mention, Jim Ruxton is a media artist and an electronics engineer, lives here in Hamilton, and he came on board VibraFusionLab about 6 or 7 years ago, and has been really the sort of the problem solver, I think. I didn't grow up with that sort of tech background, so it's really, I think the partnership has really, moved VibraFusionLab forward in leaps and bounds in terms of what we can, how we can respond to people with what their objectives or goals or ideas are when they come to us. So, I would say Jim as well, a key person in terms of where we are, and yeah.
Thank you. So I'm just looking around, and there are so many ways of exploring what vibration in sound is in this room where we are in this lab. So I was wondering if you could present some of the elements that are here, and we are going to move to the different places where they are.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so what are we looking at right now?
Okay, so what we're going to be looking at is a couple of, I just mentioned the vibrotactile belt, but there's a couple of devices that we use quite commonly, in particular in theater situations. This is what's called a Woodger, we call it a belt, it's also called a strap. It's obviously made by a company called Woodger, and these kinds of companies, there's Subpack, Woodger, there's other smaller ones, but these products are designed primarily for gaming, but we've found that the Woodger belt, because it's easy to travel, easy to ship around, because we do, as I say, installations anywhere that we get called, and it's plugs directly into a live audio system, or live. You can have live recording going directly into it. But so the idea is that there's a transducer inside which vibrates to the sound. That's you don't hear the sound from the belt, but the vibration is there. You can adjust it, so we have in the lab we have somewhere between 110 and 120 of these that can be installed in a theater. We have a cabling system that we've designed, actually Jim Ruxton designed, that can transmit the audio signal to that many belts. We also have a vibrotactile pillow here. Inside is again a transducer. So a transducer is I should have had one here, but it's designed much the same way as the speaker is, but it's designed to emphasize vibration of sound. So inside of the pillow is a transducer, and it's wired to just a small mini amp here, which is connected to my computer, and I'm just going to play something from I think, Ethiopian band called Narawan. So with the pillows, there is sound and vibration. I think you can hear the sound coming out of it now, but these are designed, they're soft, so they're easy to hold, they're very comfortable to hold. I really put a lot of emphasis on developing the pillow idea during COVID. And we also, at that time, were working on a handheld system. The idea being that we want to reduce costs of this kind of technology so that people could actually purchase them for their own personal use. And something like this, or any of these systems, can be hooked up to your entertainment systems at home. So you could be watching a movie and holding one of these pillows, or listening to your favorite album and holding one of the pillows. But pushing the idea of the pillow forward, we now have a wireless VibraTactile pillow. So we're able to eliminate the cables, which particularly if we're working with live theater and people are moving around, cabling becomes quite a difficult thing for people to maneuver. And so these you just are the Bluetooth is a fairly recent development in Bluetooth technology. So these you can just connect to your iPhone or your computer, and you're free to move around. These are also really nice to hold. I've had people put them at their back. I've had people put them under their feet. So it's really, flexible in terms of how you want to interact with them. I'll show you here behind me is we have a VibraTactile floor, and we've been working. I first designed a VibraTactile floor for Tangled Art Gallery in Toronto, probably 5-6 years ago now, for an artist that was showing there, Deirdre Lowe, and I built 4 sections of floor this size, and they were solid. This is in 4 components, but those were solid sections. And she's a video artist, so the monitors were mounted on the wall low, and then the sound, rather than coming out of a speaker or something, was channeled into the floor. So the sound videos was coming out of the floor, which was really, what happened was it really changed the experience of sound within the space. It really kind of filled the room with a different kind of sound quality.
And people could walk on the floor?
Yeah, they were all ramped. So the idea is that whenever we work with any of our technology, we try to think about access, and from as many perspectives as is possible. So I ramped them all. So people, wheelchair users could experience them on the floor, could experience the sound on the floor, but people would come in and sit on them or lie down. Just however they wanted or could best experience that quality of vibration. So now we're starting to work with separating sound into the floor. So in the case of this one, we can have 4 different sounds going into the floor, or we can control it so that sound will move in a circular pattern, or whatever direction you want the sound to move, and this is a component that then could be reproduced into multiples within a room. So a whole room could actually become a VibraTactile floor space. I guess we can look at the wall.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've moved over to another installation that we call Haptic Voices, which is, we also refer to it as the VibraTactile wall. But the idea came out of the period of COVID when, first of all, there was the Canada Council, Ontario Arts Council were able to receive funding to support artists during COVID, and we wanted to develop something that connected, the idea of connection. So Haptic Voices is a wall, VibraTactile wall, that's made up of 10 transducers. So each of these is a transducer. The design also allows for the transducers to move independently, sideways, and these can move up and down. So to adjust to height, to body type, as much as possible. And also these, they're mounted on rubber bands so that as you lean against it, it tends to sort of form to the body. So if I were to lean against it, the idea is to adjust it to sort of your shoulder area. Lower back, the thigh, and the calves. And then just lean back, so you can put your full body back into it, and it's very strong. And then we have a iPad that's programmed so that you can control the sound and vibration. We've now commissioned, I think, about 5 artists or musicians to create work for the wall. The other feature is that, again, back to the idea of connecting, was to set up a website where people could go onto their website, or go onto their laptop, open up the website, and voice into their laptop, for instance, and they're anywhere in the world, and their voice would be transmitted to the wall, and you'd feel their voice. And we'd set up a camera so that through the website, the person creating the sound could see the reaction of the person leaning against the wall. It also has an intensity adjustment, and right now we have 3 compositions on this control. We've got a piece by John Zasky, a Toronto-based composer. We have a piece that Jim Ruxton created himself, and he actually created while he was leaning against the wall, which is, the sort of the ultimate experience, I guess, in terms of when your instantaneous feedback. And then Elise Ni Rian is a deaf composer, Irish composer, living in the UK. And I'll just demonstrate. So that's moving independently through 10 channels on the wall. So as you lean against it, you're getting 10 points of sensation, vibratactile sensation. And you can't anticipate where it's coming unless you know the piece really well, which transducer is coming into. that gives you an idea of, you can also, like we could have 10 musicians or 10 instrumentalists playing live and channel them independently into each of the transducers. So yeah, I think it has a lot of possibilities yet. I think I mentioned earlier, one of the things we're looking at in terms of this concept is to condense it so that it was something that could be transported and easily placed in the back of a wheelchair or a chair for that matter. So that we recognize that even though we've considered accessibility with this, it's still inaccessible for some people. So we're very conscious of that and always trying to adapt and figure out how we can make it more available.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for welcoming me in that amazing space. And so are you working on specific projects right now, or?
Yeah, well, I guess I think first up is a trip to New York City. We're working with the Parsons School of Design there, and their sort of year-end fashion show is happening. So I'm going. We've already shipped all the stuff over there. So we're setting up a system of 25 tactile belts for the audience to get an added sensory experience of the fashion show. So that's going to be, strange time to go to New York, but it's going to be a really interesting thing. I mentioned Aaron Ball. We're continuing to work with Aaron Ball. We're working, again, an ongoing project with Vanessa Dion Fletcher, who's a Lenape artist in Toronto. She's working on an exhibition that would be happening at what was the Art Gallery of Windsor. It's now called Art Windsor Essex. I've said there's lots more happening. I think just referring back to what I'd said earlier around some of the projects that are, tend to be ongoing. It's rare that we have, everything gets wrapped up in one session. So typically, what happens in one leads to another, and so many of our projects last over, multiple years.
Well, thank you again. And I'm sure we will see each other in one project or another.
Definitely have a feeling we will. Yeah, now that I have a better sense of what your illustriousness is all about, which seems to be fascinating. And absolutely. I think there's really a lot of connections with what you're doing, and would love to.
Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That's my pleasure.